Welcome back to Shine In and Out, the space where science meets soul. I'm your host, Sammy Stoltz, and today we're joined by Shannon Salge, a practitioner blending bioresonance, functional wellness, and energy science to help women rebalance their hormones, restore gut health, and optimize their nervous systems. Her work bridges science and subtle energy, helping people understand that true healing requires alignment between mind, body, and frequency. Let's jump right in. All right, Shannon, welcome. So great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to start with your journey to where you are today. What drew you originally to functional nutrition and energetic medicine?
Boy, it's a journey. And I will tell you, energy medicine was not even on my freaking radar until probably 2 or 3 years ago. I started off really I was a professional dancer at a really young age. I was extremely athletic. I was a type A student, always wanting to be the best at everything, and, was top of my class and doing all of the things, like total stress cadet. And although I never thought I was stressed, right? Like never thought I was stressed. And just slowly my body started like giving up on me, like at a young age, even 13, 14. I was just noticed a lot of pain, like a lot of joint pain, a lot of stomach issues. And I just was like, well, this is normal, right? Started not having a period, or when I did, I would just vomit for days. It's just like, but this is just part of being a woman, right? I didn't know. I was, 13, 14. So fast forward to college, and I really wanted to study kinesiology, sports medicine. I also was a professional dancer. So I also got, I double majored in that too, and still just didn't feel great. It's like, but let me study the human body. And I learned a lot about how to exercise and how to, work out and eat healthy. And that was about it. I mean, my whole college education was like, pretty baseline. And I love college, but it was just, it taught me, it barely scratched the surface for me. And I just knew there was more to all of this. So that after college, I was going to be a sports medicine doctor, decided to pivot into more of the proactive side of things, not the reactive side of things.
Thank you.
And I ended up managing a gym, and it was beautiful, beautiful gym, did a lot of personal training. I also was the Pilates manager, and I trained thousands of people. But I was just like, all of these people, like, we're only doing so much with the nutrition. Like, I love nutrition. It is the forefront of everything. But it was like, I can only out-train and out-exercise so much. And the more and more people I saw, the more I was seeing all these autoimmune diseases and all of this chronic hormone issues or this weight loss resistance that I couldn't figure out no matter what I did. And it was like, this is really interesting. But I was so busy that I was like, I couldn't really dive deeper than what I was doing. I was training every hour on the hour for 70 hours a week, and it wasn't until I ended up winning, I went to win a bodybuilding show. So, what does a really stressed out human who already is doing the most want to do with their life? Go train for a bodybuilding show. And that's really where my story kind of begins, because I went and won this bodybuilding show, and within about a month and a half, I started having such horrific pain. I started walking with a cane. And I was on 5 Aleve a day just to walk. And my gut, I couldn't eat any food. Just, like, everything started inflaming me. And then, my hormones were already non-existent with the prep, and they just kind of stayed that way. But I had cystic acne, my hair was falling out, my nails were super brittle. I gained 15 pounds in 6 weeks, but the pain was horrific. I couldn't even get out of bed on my own. I had, like, my husband, boyfriend at the time, put my shoes and socks on for me, and it was like, and I went to specialist after specialist after specialist trying to figure out what was wrong. You go to a hormone doctor, you go to a gut doctor, you go to a, endocrinologist, you go to your OB, and nobody could figure out what was wrong because my labs were perfect. It's like, wow.
Oh my God.
I don't feel perfect. I am literally struggling to survive every day. But everything was optimal. And so people would tell me, go on anxiety medication, right? This is all in your head, right? And I was like, no, something's really wrong. I ended up getting diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, which is an autoimmune disease, progressive autoimmune disease. I was told I had IBS, I had PCOS, I had fibromyalgia, I had, but like, it wasn't really any of those. The ankylosing spondylitis was like, that is definitely something that actually runs in my family, but it was so much deeper. And so that's where I dove into something's more. I have to figure this out for myself. And when I did, my whole world expanded. Like, I was like the role of gut health and the role of minerals and the role of nervous system and the role of everything playing into everybody, but I work primarily with females' health was astounding, and I healed myself completely. I got off all medications. I felt the best I ever did. Doctors would tell me it didn't matter what I did with my food. Like, I was straight up had my rheumatologist tell me that my diet didn't matter. Like, I was floored. Wow, it's crazy. Like, people don't understand the role of nutrition or stress. They know what they're taught, and that's important, and that plays a role, but it's just not the end all be all. So then fast forward, I felt great. And then I had a healthy pregnancy. I really didn't want to be on biologics or any medications trying to get pregnant. I was told I wasn't going to be able to have kids, or if I did, it would be very hard. I got pregnant first try, had a healthy, great pregnancy, great postpartum. But then I went through this identity shift and this identity change, as many new moms do, who are also business owners, because it's really freaking hard, both. And I just was like, energy medicine is I believe where things are heading, if people are open to it. And I was meeting a lot of energy healers at the time. And I was in masterminds with a lot of them. And I was like, gosh, this is just crazy what they're able to do. And I dove deeper instead of just nervous system work, like, oh, I'm breathing. I'm going to do a meditation, which didn't mean a whole lot to me. I remember having a mindset coach many years ago tell me to do an hour meditation. I laughed in his face. I was like, I'll give you 5 minutes. I didn't it's right. I didn't believe the role stress played. I didn't understand trauma. I didn't understand generational trauma. And the more I unpacked this, the more I couldn't look back. And that was a turning point, because for so many years, I did functional labs because they saved my life. And I was seeing with a lot of my clients, like, some clients would completely improve, amazing. But like, for so many, they would get stuck again. And I'd get so frustrated because I'm like, what am I missing? We've done the protocols, we've done the labs, and the deeper I dove into the role that energy plays, the role that nervous system plays, I was like, this is the missing link for everybody. It's not the gut protocol. It's not the hormone protocol. They play a role. And so then just through my quest of feeling a little lost, for lack of better words, like, I felt lost because I was doing all this. I was successful in my business, but I was feeling disconnected. And I knew there was something else out there. And then one of my friends came up to me at a mastermind just randomly one day, told me about bioresonance work. And the next day, I invested multiple 5 figures into the equipment, into everything, and I never looked back because I just knew in my soul, my gut, this was exactly it. It perfectly integrated, energy medicine with my very logical brain of being able to like quantify things through data and through, scans. And so ever since switching to that, I've just seen things move faster for clients and deeper for clients. And it's just been an incredible experience for not only for myself, but also for clients. So yeah, that's where my long story short, how I got into it all.
You spoke my language in so many aspects. I was the exact same type A student. I loved how you used stress cadet. That's hilarious. But I have to say, I would have panic attacks every single day and think that was just normal anxiety. And so when people first described a panic attack to me, I was like, what do you mean? Like, those aren't a big deal. It was just like, we thought we were doing the right things at that time, of course.
Yeah.
And I love the proactive, not reactive medicine. That is something that I am all about, because what happened to us doesn't have to happen to other people if we can educate them and help them to have better habits. I absolutely love everything that you said, everything that you're doing. I had the same journey. My labs are all perfect every time. All of the doctors, the only thing they can come up with is fibromyalgia, and that's fine, but I know that it's, deeper than that. And the only thing that has really helped me heal was shifting my diet, my exercise, my lifestyle, my priorities, my mindset, especially my mindset and my perspective on what mattered and what I should be spending my stress on.
Well,
so
there's women are the ones that have 80% of the diagnosis of autoimmune diseases too. It's, we are taught that we're just emotional if we show, any weakness and, anxiety. It's just anxiety, or you're on your cycle, and it's like, we're not taught that the role of emotions plays a big role. And that, we are the caretakers for everybody, we're very empathetic. We carry a lot of other people's, weight on our shoulders. And then you add
100%.
being, a mom on top of that. And then suddenly you give to everybody else and you don't take for yourself. And it's just all this compiles year over year on top of, again, just being stressed out constantly from a young age. Usually childhood is when it starts, right?
Yeah.
And then we just stress it until something smacks us on the damn head and makes us stop,
Exactly.
And then this whole unlearning experience that you go through of like, wait a minute. You're telling me like when I'm a 7-year-old kid, like that's like affecting me now in like my 30s and 40s? Yeah.
And also my ancestors, their stress is in my epigenetics. You're telling me that?
If you would have told me I would have talked about ancestral trauma like 4 years ago, I would have laughed at you, to be honest. And it's still not my specialty. I have other friends that are very much deeper into this line of work. It's not my heart per se, but I do see it on scans. When we're running emotional scans, part of what comes up a lot is called generational emotional mapping. And we see a lot of generational stuff because your body does carry not only genes, like your eye color, your hair color, it also carries the stress of the nervous system and traumas. And if you don't process them, your body will continue to carry it on, which is wild to see how far sometimes the stuff goes back. Yeah. That's a weird one. I usually end with that with a client because I'm talking about like the very physical things first that make people feel a little more bought in and a little bit more like, oh my God, their mind's blown because I just read their body so well. And then we get into that work where it's like, hey, are you open to this? Because if I start talking about like, oh, well, your grandfather maternal side, there's some trauma there. Okay.
Totally. But now there's all of the epigenetics to back it up. Like they have done legitimate studies about health issues from descendants of Holocaust survivors or those that endured famine, things like that. Yep. So it is just as much science-backed, and I'm loving the science revolution that it's headed in that direction. I'm recently also diving into the bioenergetics world, and as, an empirically minded scientist, I not avoided it, but was kind of quiet about my interest for a while because, science and soul, a lot of the time you can't really put them together. That's why I'm trying to do that. But I'm actually, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Sue Morter. She's a chiropractic doctor, and I'm going to her bioenergetics conference in Santa Fe in October. So I'm really excited about that. I'll have to let you know how it goes. But I read her book and I decided to go on her website, and it was like, just as I discovered her, she had her one event of the year, and I was like already traveling during that time. I was like, perfect, jump right in. It felt right. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And so I'd love to hear more about the tools that you're using to get those results that you can convey to your clients.
Yeah. Bioenergetics is a big term, right? I do bioresonance work specifically through equipment called Quest. And, even a lot of people have different styles of equipment. Some people don't even use equipment. For me, the way that we run is we take a sample from hair, nail, or saliva, and we run it through our equipment with their birth date, their name. And it uses a process called, I'm not going to get into it, quantum entanglement, quantum physics. Like this is rooted in quantum physics. And that's something, again, like my very logical brain had a hard time understanding when I stepped away from labs, trying to explain to people that this isn't just woo-woo. Like this is rooted in quantum physics. But it is hard to still comprehend. And, I can technically, well, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but, when clients send us samples, we're able to tap into their body's energy. And it's different than if somebody sent me a sample for like a hair tissue mineral analysis or like a stool test, other sorts of functional labs where we're testing like the protein, right? We're testing like where the body is that day. Like this is your energy. So your energy changes and shifts every day. So I can use similar samples when I'm retesting people because I'm testing their body where it's at that day, not when they took that sample. And that's a very interesting thing to comprehend.
Yeah, that is.
A great example, I tell this on a lot because it's very easy to understand, is like my sister who lives across the country. I've ran scans on her to help her with some health, things that she's working through. But one day she broke her elbow and she was coming back from the hospital. And I was like, let me run some scans on you. Let me just facilitate some extra healing or give you some extra, we work with frequency, send you some healing frequencies to help Anyways, I run her scan, and one of the first things that shows up on her scan is electromagnetic rays, X-rays, right? That had never shown up on any of her scans before, right? Like I always tell clients, I can't make this shit up. Excuse my language. I was like, it's wild. And so, the fact that that had showed up and then some other inflammatory markers and, things like that, like it's just wild. The body is impacted by X-rays. It doesn't mean it causes damage necessarily. It's just like we had to bring some balance back into the body from, a little bit of that exposure. And, it's just wild. And I see that with clients too. Sometimes I'm like, are they sick? Like, I'll see some like maybe things around the throat or cold or like congestion in the chest. And I have to ask, like, were they sick, or is this like, you would understand this, like throat chakra, right? A lot of my clients have thyroid issues. A lot of people have underlying strep issues that they never cleared that are creating, an immune response in their body, or they just have a lot of phlegm and congestion or grief that they're holding in their lungs. And so sometimes I'm having to dive deeper, and sometimes they're like, oh no, I was sick when you were, okay, this makes sense. Right. But yes. So then I have probably over 100 different scans that I've built out and personalized in my system. And I usually run on a client 4 to 8, just depending on where they're at. They're incredibly in depth, and it gives me a ton of information. So I call it a root cause scan is the first thing I run. And that gives me, as you know, like when I'm talking about root cause, a lot of people think a parasite, right? And, or some dysbiosis in the gut or a mineral. And that could be, absolutely. So we're looking at things on a causal level, like what is causing the most dysfunction in the body at a root level. And this can show gut issues, mineral issues, trauma issues. Anything. It's incredibly in depth. Then we're running a little bit more into symptoms, looking more into neurotransmitters, minerals, hormones, teeth, vertebra. Those are huge ones because your teeth and your vertebra are connected to different organ systems as well. And they can create a lot of inflammation, particularly the teeth. That's a big one for clients, especially if they've had like root canals, metal fillings, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Oral health is so connected to
your
whole body, cardiovascular. Yeah.
But I've had a client go literally into remission from Hashis after everything from like just finally getting her root canal out, and that was something her doctor kept saying was not an issue. And after we worked together for a year, she felt better. Like, she felt 70% better. But I was like, we're missing something. I see that a lot with root canals, a lot with breast implants.
And your body's attacking it. It's foreign.
Yeah. Or even like, that was a little more of a personal thing, but a client had some issues in her vagina, and she had, mesh, and they couldn't get the mesh because she had some endometriosis kind of. And so her body just was like constantly attacking that, and they could only get like 80% of it out. But anyways, so then we're looking at, emotions. I run a whole emotional scan, and that's mind blowing for people because, some of it they resonate really well with. They're like, oh my God, how did you know? And then some of it, they don't understand why it might be coming up. And what I always say is if it's coming up, it means your body wants to address it, right? It wants to bring this up. It's important. It's okay if your conscious mind doesn't understand it. Yeah. And then they'll go into some specialty scans depending on the client. If clients are having some, I'll do some maybe brain scans, joint scans, specific, like if they're having some pain, maybe some stuff around that, maybe diving a little deeper into the gut, just trying to get a little bit mycotoxins is a big one. Oh my God, with clients. And, just understanding a little deeper on what might be going on. That's typically what like a session would look like, is running those scans, but really getting an understanding of why this is happening. That's the biggest thing I want, is I don't want to just give you a bunch of freaking data, because that without the why behind it is going to keep you in the same loop of just what a lot of our clients come in where, I have estrogen dominance, I have mold, I have Lyme, I won't even get into the Lyme, because bioresonance is one of the only things that has picked up Lyme for a lot of people, and even mold, but Lyme's a big one. But, it's like, I just need to do another parasite cleanse because I saw a parasite here and I need to do, and it's like, no, let's understand why our frequency is so low that you keep getting candida and parasitic infections and things. It's so much deeper than just that parasite. If you keep attacking it and detoxing it without addressing the frequency of the body, you're going to keep having things come back. Right. And so one of the things I find fascinating about bioenergetics is when I'm reading the data, that comes up in different dilutions. And that won't make a lot of sense. But what that means is I'm actually able to see, is the body able and willing to address it at this moment? Is it showing up as a physical symptom, or is it showing up just in our energetic field? So sometimes it's hard because I can see things might happen before they happen because the energy field is so disrupted. And I have to be careful with my words too on how I describe this to clients. But, it's like their energy field is being impacted by this. And whether they're seeing it in the physical or not doesn't matter, because it might either clear once we do this work, or it might show up in the physical. And so stuff that's in the physical, sometimes we do, maybe a little bit of a gut protocol. We're doing physical supplementation. I don't even guess anymore with physical supplementation. Everything is tested against the body. Does it resonate with it, or does it not? And it's amazing because it takes the guesswork out of everything, which is so great. Because even if you do lab testing, it's not telling you if the body's going to resonate well with that supplement, even if we'll just say something silly. Even if your D is low and this D is what, you know what I mean? Well, D is a little bit different, but it's just gives us a roadmap on what to do and when to do it. Because, I'll have so many clients that all we do is imprint, which means we take a tincture. It's usually an alcohol and water base, and then we run it through the equipment and we put the frequencies that come up on the scan into the tincture. And that part was weird for me to understand. I'm not going to lie. When somebody told me they were taking a water tincture and their gut health got all better, I was like, weird. I'm into it, but I'm skeptical. Right?
Yeah.
But you're bringing the body's frequencies. You're giving the body frequency to remind it how to return back to normal. And sometimes that's all I do with clients, because that is all their body is willing to do. And that's okay. Sometimes we bring in physical supplementation. Sometimes we're layering on more intense protocols. It just kind of depends where they're at, not only physically, but mentally, to handle it. But I have seen the most amount of change through the client's specific frequency tinctures than any other.
Wow.
Because you take, on an average scan, 200 to 400 different frequency signatures that their body is aligning with, and they take that every day. And, people are skeptical, and I understand. And I tell them, I have two that I have a very sensitive client right now, and she's going to start with 1 drop a day, because I've had clients herx from 2 drops sometimes because their body's so sensitive, right? And so it's really fascinating that you don't need to be pulling all of these supplements. You also can't, I'm not going to give you a supplement for generational trauma. I'm not going to give you a supplement for cellular, DNA. There are certain things like homeopathy that can help, but that's where we're starting with 90% of our clients. So yeah.
I think the finding something in frequencies before it comes up physically is huge, because imagine if you and I and our little 13-year-old selves had a scan like that. It would have been almost incredulity, no way, I'm healthy as a horse and I'm kicking butt and I'm president of this and captain of that. And, for a while that was my mindset, how is this? And I just wanted to push through because I thought that my identity had to do with the person that got all A's and was successful in everything, and pushed myself too hard and was proud of it. And so I didn't have any warning, and my body made me stop. But if we can help people before they get to that point, I think everybody has this idea oh, but that won't happen to me, or oh, but I've been fine so far. Same with unhealthy eating, especially people in their 20s and stuff that are not eating well for their bodies at all, but they're not quite seeing consequences yet, thinking it won't happen to them. And why would you take proactive measures if you weren't seeing any consequences? It's not in our nature to expend energy to do something that we see no consequence. So yes, I love that you're trying to help people before they get to that point, because once it's physical, I think it's that much more difficult to overcome, and that much more difficult to live a normal life when you're in pain and burnout and exhausted. I'm so curious about your diagnostics and whatnot. So I think about, quantum physics. Science tells us that every cell in our body emits energy, and we have these tiny electromagnetic fields that communicate with the nervous system, the brain, even the gut microbiome. And of course, those studies of quantum physics where you have a particle all the way on the opposite side of the earth, but because they were once associated, if you have impact one, the other is affected. So I'm sure you work remotely then, where you can have somebody send a piece of tissue, and over you can use the same tissue because it was once a part of them and is therefore evolving as they evolve from a distance.
Yeah, that's the the theory of quantum entanglement too. I mean, I don't talk about this a lot with clients, but I don't technically even need a sample because it's too hard to understand quantum entanglement and people aren't bought into that. I get it. I would want to send a sample too. But, through energy, through frequency, through their date of birth, through their name, through, that's where, like, when I work with clients remotely or sometimes very, what's the word I'm looking for? Acutely. So like I had a friend whose baby was born very, very early in the NICU. They're not sending me a sample, but I am working through, their energy and their date of birth and their name and stuff to do scans. Same with another friend whose husband's in the ICU. I'm able to tap into their body, which sounds very weird, but it's so freaking accurate. Now, when I work with clients, I tell them to send me a sample. It makes everybody feel more comfortable about the situation, and I get it. And so, when we're running their sample, we're running it. I think I have 75,000 different frequencies that I'm testing their body against. So when we're running the scan, it takes 20 to 45 minutes, depending on the client, usually. And because I'm testing against all these different frequencies against their body, right? Because every cell, every organ, every system, yes, it has that frequency. And so that's how we're kind of getting that data. Now, if somebody was in person, which I don't do in-person work, they can hold on to the electrodes that we have. And that's how they're getting the scan. But then you got to sit there for like, a half hour and just hold them. But I personally also like that. I know people like it because they can feel something tangible and that their logical brain likes that. But I spend, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours sometimes putting together reports for a client because I don't read things at surface level. I want to read everything. I want to understand the body. I want to look at things and put together the pieces of the puzzle and not just read line by line why things are coming up. Because frankly, half of it does. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's just that it's not important to address at this moment. We're going to imprint it and hope it goes away. But people get really caught up in the weeds of all the little things that come up. And I'm like, it's too overwhelming for the system to try to process all of these things that, let's figure out the main points that we need to go through and the rest will hopefully work itself out. If it doesn't, if we see it on the next scan, then we address it then. So yeah, that's how I'm working with clients it is remote. They fill out an intake form. So I do understand a little bit more about what's going on beforehand. It is very cool because sometimes I do both, like just as like a fun game as I read the data first and then try to put together a story and then I read their intake. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this makes
so fun.
So much sense. And sometimes I do it the opposite way because it does help me. But, and then I'm getting on a call with them and really understanding, like, I don't just send you a report. There are some bioenergetic practitioners that will just send you a report of all the things that are wrong with you. And I don't believe in that because it makes you feel broken. It makes you feel, oh, I'm in the same spot I was, or I'm just going to take a bunch of supplements. But 3, it's you need to connect the dots. Like, this is so much deeper when you work with when you work with energy. It's also, what is the energy of the body? What are you dealing with right now? And, and then when you talk to people, you understand a lot deeper why their body is in the state that it is, and why things might keep coming up. I'll give you a quick example. Is I had a bee sting signature show up for a client on the root cause scan. So I was like, okay, this is important to address. Are they allergic to a bee? Did they get stung? Was there some trauma around a bee? I don't know. And so I just casually asked, I was like, hey, bee sting showed up. I'm just curious, does that mean anything to you? Like, what comes up when I say that? And I kind of gave her a timeline. I was like, this has been something that's been happening for a while, since presumably, you were this age. And she just started almost getting choked up, and she was abused by her mother at a young age. And I did know that from her intake form, but she said the first time she ever got beat was she got stung by a bee, and she yelled really loud because it hurt. And that was the first time her mom hit her. I still get ugh. And that opened up a lot for her, right? So she did have gut issues. She was in perimenopause too. So there was obviously some hormone issues going on. She was in she did fighting. So she had a lot of brain trauma also kind of going on. Definitely a lot of gut inflammation. I think I already said that. But, so all that was very physical. That was happening too. But there was this huge unlock moment for her where she was able to realize, well, this is something that's been holding me back for a while. And then we explored a little bit deeper on that side of things. And she, within one session, her gut issues got, exponentially better through tinctures and a few supplements, but nothing crazy. Pretty basic. And it was just wild. So, you get fun stuff like that sometimes shows up.
Yeah. The thing is, people are so unaware of what's going on inside of them,
Well,
emotionally, especially. People don't take that moment to sit with themselves and try to dive deeper into what's going on inside of them. And so I'm sure oftentimes when you propose something to somebody that you saw come up on a scan, they deny it and fully believe that it's not there. And
yeah,
maybe they have some time to think about it, have some time to reflect, and they'll come back and be like, damn, I do
yeah,
have an issue.
that comes up a
It's
lot.
crazy.
You know,
Yeah, you have to be open to stuff.
well, truthfully, it's not even that people aren't willing. It's that, your subconscious, your brain tries to keep you safe. Right. And
Yeah.
so many people don't remember trauma because their brain, shuts it off. They shut off part of their life,
Yeah.
and you try to be like, oh, do you remember, life when you were 5, 6, 7? People don't know. And that's actually a trauma response. So, it's very fascinating because I work with very different sides of the spectrum. And I will say the person with the bee sting is very into energy healing. So she was very open to anything I was putting down. And I was able to go really deep with her, which was cool. I actually had bee sting only come up twice. And the other person, very closed. And she'd actually been working with our program for many, many months and has severe weight loss resistance issues.
Mm.
And, I brought this up. She's like, flat, nothing. I was like, nothing comes up at all when I say this. She's like, no. I was like, was there any event with you or with somebody else that you know? Because it was with a different emotional blocks and different, I just couldn't figure out where it's coming from. And then I was like, okay, so I kind of left it. And then I came back to it again. I was like, just curious, like, did anything after, we've kind of worked through this come up? Long story short, her brother almost died from a bee sting when she was like 8. And so he was hospitalized. She was with him and he got stung by a bunch of bees, went to, shock, had to go to the hospital and almost died. So I was like, you felt that. Something around that did not make you feel safe and made you feel guarded. And, it's something to work through. And now I'm not, an EMDR practitioner, an EFT practitioner, I kind of guide clients into other modalities if they want to work through that. I'll imprint this stuff and the body will help kind of remember how to let go of it. But it's fascinating, and once that actually unlocked for her, she started tearing up. Now, she doesn't like to cry. She doesn't want to show emotion, which we talk about a lot, right? I'm like, this is holding you back. but she started getting teared up about it. And she was like, wow, I just didn't realize like that could be affecting me. And then she was much more open and receptive to all the other nervous system work we were talking about and all the different things that were coming up, after that as well. Still skeptical because she wants to believe that it's a nutrition issue and, or a drug issue. But when she's not responding to anything, even GLP-1s, it's just, it runs a lot deeper.
Oh,
yeah. So that was a fascinating one.
wow. Yeah. So you're more on the diagnostic side, like let's figure out what's going on with you. And you talked about some of the modalities that you use to, help relieve people, the tinctures, the sending frequencies. And the sending frequencies make sense because even just your name, the universe communicates in energy. So if you've associated yourself energetically with this pattern of letters for so long, it makes sense that it would associate with you. So aside from those things, and you said some supplementation, of course, because some of it is very physical and some of it is physical because of the energetic, imbalance. So what other kind of things do you suggest to people? Maybe just like general holistic practices that will always help and never harm.
Well, I'm going to say one thing before I get into that. This is not diagnostic. That is really important to understand. And I do tell clients, right, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't technically be telling you I'm diagnosing you. And that's where I actually see a lot of bioenergetic people go little, what's the word, into the gray area. If I tell a client that I can't technically tell them you have parasites, you have this. You're resonating very strong with parasites. You're resonating with old signatures. Because again, we're talking about energy fields. We're not talking about a diagnosis. I can say, hey, our thyroid's looking really, really off, right? Can't tell you technically have Hashimoto's. Now, with that being said, when clients work with us, we have two different options. They can do a scan only if they're really just curious. They don't want any coaching. My favorite is our 3-month container called the Total Body Recode, where we're really diving into, as like the data and the supplements and the plan is one thing, but the accountability, the tweaking, so often clients really need that hands-on approach. and understanding lifestyle. And, I tell clients like all the time, like they can take the supplement, but if they're not changing their lifestyle, like it's going to come back. And I don't want you to spend money, keep coming back to me because like when you could have changed this before. So, the biggest lifestyle things I see with clients are chronic stress. That's a big one. Right. And it depends where the client's at mentally on whether we start there or not, because usually we're starting always with nutrition. Blood sugar dysregulation is probably the biggest thing, right? Clients aren't eating enough protein. Clients are skipping meals, whether it's intentional or not. They're not drinking water, nearly enough water. And it all sounds basic, but it's basic because it works. They're not mineralizing
metabolic health.
Like, it's just like
do not know how important it is.
Simple.
Absolutely.
But people want to dive into all of this other crazy stuff before they address the fact that they are not sleeping, not eating enough, and, they're not drinking water and their body's chronically stressed out because of it, right?
That's just the infrastructure.
Right. But it's like, I can't tell you how many people come in and they'll say, I'm the best 4-hour sleeper you've ever met. That's not
good for you.
Not a flex. Now listen, me too. I pulled so many all-nighters. I could thrive off of 5 hours of sleep. And I felt honestly fine doing it. Now, obviously, I understand all the gut autoimmune hormone issues might have also played a role, but at the time I didn't connect the dots, right? I thought I was fine. So those are simple things that we're looking at. And if you're not able to sleep, let's dive into that a little bit more, right? And if you're not able to eat, let's figure out why. And if your body's not digesting it, or is it a time thing? Is it a food fear thing? That's a big one. Most of our clients come in uneating.
Yeah.
What I love about what we do is we're very functional lensed, but also still energetic lensed. So, which probably isn't the right way of saying that, but we can take clients through the nervous system healing work and the bioenergy side of things. But at the same time, some clients need a freaking reverse diet. Some clients need to eat more, do a reverse diet and do, a proper maybe flush or, something like that, and understand macros because they're so scared to eat. They think they're eating so much when really they're just not eating enough. So some people genuinely need to understand that side of things as well. That's where I came from too, very macro workout, side of things. So it still plays a role. It's just not the most important role that I think anymore. But, so yeah, I mean, those are the big things. And then, diving into the nervous system is a big one too. Understanding your patterns, understanding why you keep doing what you're doing, moving more to, just getting outside, seeing sunlight.
Oh my gosh,
getting your body
we're meant to.
So those are probably my top 5 or 6 things that, like, if you're not doing it, and even if you think you're doing it, audit it, because 80% of our clients are like, well, those things. Okay, let's take a deeper look. Okay, 60 grams of protein isn't enough. You are getting outside, but it's for 5 minutes twice a week. like, can we, increase that a little bit? You are sleeping, but 6 hours still isn't enough. Can we get it to 7? So it's just fine tuning things to be more optimal and be more optimal with their lifestyle without stressing them out. That's a big fine line too, right? So
100%. I consider myself a human optimization specialist, and I think it's so interesting how we can get there, but I think it's very hard for people to do those small tweaks because you don't see immediate results. I think it took me 3 years before, and it was such a slow progression that I almost didn't notice until one day I was walking down the stairs and I started bawling because I was in pain, but like it was minuscule compared to what I used to experience every day. And it was like such this moment of like, how did I not notice that I have been healing this whole time? But it was so slow and so like fractional over time that almost only in retrospect did I see it. I would love for there to be. So do you ever rescan people like as they're working on these things to see like, are we seeing improvements? And maybe that's a really good, incentive to continue?
Yeah, different people have different theories on this. And that's the thing too with the energy world there's a lot of gray area that's very annoying for this black and white like thinker. Here's the reason I say that. When we rescan, there is a way to rescan and see if things cleared. I don't ever do that. It's great for, I'll tell you why. It's great for social media. Look at all these things you cleared. Amazing. But here's the problem. When I rescan, a lot of things come up again. And it wasn't that you didn't clear the other things. It's that your body wasn't ready to address them at the time. Now it is. And so, instead of wasting your body and your energy into looking at that, but because then if you do a new scan, you're like, wait a minute, I thought I cleared all that Lyme and parasites. And now you're telling me I have more? You cleared the ones that were on that scan, right? So when I rescan, it's completely from fresh, and it's not like, oh, suddenly we'll just say testosterone was here, and now your testosterone is here. That's not really how it works. It's your body no longer is needing all of this extra support in this area. Your gut's not really flagging that much anymore. We still need a little bit, maybe you're still working through a little bug here that we need to kind of work on, but then maybe we see a lot more like lung stuff come up, because as you start healing, sometimes grief comes to the surface and lungs hold grief a lot. Right? Or maybe there's deeper gut things that we're not, showing, or DNA or cell things that were not showing up the first time, because your body didn't need to address that. It needed to address the fact that you were malnourished, had no minerals, and, maybe we'll just, you did have a parasite that was eating away at some of it too, right? And so it's like peeling away layers of an onion. And that's what's really fascinating about this work, is every time you scan, new things are going to show up. And, it's not, doesn't mean you aren't healing. You're going to feel better. Like, there's no way you cannot feel better when you are working with your body's energy.
Yeah.
It just might be slower than some people want it. Sometimes I see this work truthfully the fastest. I will do a remote scan, meaning I haven't even sent them the tinctures. I'm sending them a remote scan, like remote frequencies. And I've had clients' heartburn go away and never come back just doing that. And, that's a simple example. Like, I have a client that didn't even get our tinctures yet. And she's like, I already feel less bloated. She's like, I've been doing, like, she's had 4 different practitioners in the last 5 years. And she's like, wow. I don't even understand. I'm like, frequency.
See, that's so interesting, because we know the placebo effect is so powerful. Like, your brain's belief about what you're doing to heal yourself and whether or not it's working actually means whether it works or doesn't. And it's so interesting that people can come to you after meeting with 4 separate people who they thought would make something work. And the placebo effect should have been in effect those times, but this is like almost against it, real healing. So I'm curious, are most of your clients people who come to you after kind of becoming cynical about their options and whether or not they can be helped? And are the majority of them already, comfortable with energetic healing, or is it something that you have to help them rise through?
It's 50-50 split.
Okay.
Most of my clients come to me having already done things. Most people's first stop is not bioenergetics. I'm a middle ground practitioner where I still market functional nutrition, lifestyle, as well as bioenergetics. And so I kind of get both sides of the spectrum there. You have to be open and willing to understand that energy and frequency plays a role, or else I won't take you on as a client. Because the reality is, I know I'm not here to convince you that this works. And if you don't want to believe it works and you don't believe in it, your body will know that. It will shut off. It will not want to respond, even if I know things are working, right? But again, most people aren't coming in and investing in us if they don't believe it, right?
Yeah. That's true. It's like looking at light, particle wave. Like, if you're watching your body and telling it this doesn't work, it's not going to work.
Yes. And that can happen. Really, the only time it does happen is when I have a wife that's trying to convince their husband that to get help, and they don't want help. You know what I mean? And it's that's why I don't always love, I always say I would love to help them, but they have to come to me. I'm not coming to them.
Yes.
They have to be ready, because if I'm forcing them into something, it's not going to be advantageous. That's usually how it works. It's just both sides of the spectrum, but it's a lot of people who have tried a lot of things and have not seen results. Right. And, whether that's, most of our clients come in with weight loss resistance, thyroid issues, hormone issues, gut issues, chronic joint pain issues, and they just don't know where to turn. And they're willing to try something different, and they want to go deeper. They don't want surface level information anymore. And, they've done that. And maybe it did help for a short time, but they're ready for a more expansive experience. And, I think people also don't realize how much they can heal. They come to us, let's just say for bad period pain, we'll just, say that.
Yeah.
And suddenly their chronic migraines go away, their relationships get better, they're able to excel and work again because they realize they didn't have all the brain fog and irritability they used to have. right? They just feel more calm, more grounded, and it's like all of these things started happening, but what they really wanted was maybe a 5-pound weight loss and not to be like debilitated every
Yeah.
period, but that was surface level, right? So, uh, yeah. So
Okay.
it's
So as we're closing off, I'm sure there's so many people that might be listening that have barely started to question whether or not their frequencies are healthy and all of these things. Could you describe to us how somebody might know that they're not in alignment and offer what could be different for them if they were to look into this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has frequencies that are out of alignment. That's the reality, right? And so it's not about chasing perfection and perfect alignment, right? The world we live in, there's always going to be things to optimize. And so you can do a lot of that through lifestyle, right? You don't need bioenergetics or bioresonance work to necessarily optimize a lot of that. Work on those things we talked about, stress, protein, eating enough, getting outside, getting sunlight, grounding. All of that will help bring your body into a higher frequency. But then forgot the second part of your question. But as far as like getting help, like if they wanted to explore bioenergetics or
Yeah,
bioresonance,
what kind of differences do you see, not just in their physical health, but like the way that they feel about life?
yeah, oh, that's a big topic. I don't think we'll have enough to.
Shouldn't have done it with one question left. Yeah, no worries. If there's anything then that you'd like to impart upon the audience before we go.
Well, I think as far as that last question is just like when you work with frequency, a lot of my clients have worked with like adaptogens, right? Mushrooms to just lower their cortisol, right?
Mhm.
But they're not actually using anything to help process their body's emotions. They're just blunting it. And so when you work with frequency, you're working on, we're imprinting anywhere from 50 to 100 to 200 different frequencies in an emotional scan alone to help your body process and move through those. Sometimes we work with homeopathy to help the body further process through these, or different, tinctures in that way. So that way, sometimes we have to heal to feel, or feel to heal, right? And
Yeah.
that's really important. A very, very, very big component for clients' healing journey is trapped emotions and all of this, the weight of
Yeah.
what they're carrying. Maybe that answers the
Yeah,
question.
it's
But
not just treating symptoms. It's it's not reactive, it's proactive. You're
yeah,
working to get better every day. That's really great.
absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
Shannon, thank you so much. I know you have to get to another meeting, but thank you so much for being here. I hope we get to chat again. I'd love to even do like a live energetic reading if you're open to that.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Right? All right. I'll let you go. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye. Shannon, your work is such a beautiful reminder that healing is multidimensional. It's biochemical, emotional, and energetic. To everyone listening, if you've ever felt something deeper calling to you for alignment, this conversation is your sign to listen. You can connect with Shannon on Instagram at shannon.sal and learn more about her bioresonance and functional wellness programs. Everything else will be in the show notes. Keep shining.